Turn on that CB radio and prepare to go into maximum overdrive, because this is Truck Month. That's right, for all of Smarch, we're going to focus on trucks here at PDX Toy Collective. I'm sure the thumbnail and the context gave that away, but just making sure everybody knows. Each video this month will focus on a rig in one way, shape, or form. Sometimes they're robots, sometimes they're battle stations, sometimes they'll be both. But each one will be a unique piece, and none of them will be a traditional Optimus Prime toy, because that is the easy road, and here, life is a highway and we're taking the scenic route. None of that makes any sense, but the point is, it'll be interesting. And in honor of the greatest movie to ever feature a truck as the main antagonist, Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive, all of the videos will feature music by AC/DC. So come on, join our convoy as we focus on the vintage Kenner M.A.S.K. Rhino. Released in the inaugural year of the Kenner M.A.S.K. toy line, the Rhino leads the charge against Venom. The Rhino is a bold and striking Kenworth-style long-nosed tractor cab, with room for two. And included with the Rhino is Bruce Sato and the hero of the series, Matt Trakker. Let's see, who do we start with? Eeny, meeny, miny, Bruce. So Bruce includes the lifter mask, and it lifts things. Pretty self-explanatory. And it has a very grounded design. Looks much more like a pilot's helmet mixed a little bit with Navy Frogman gear. Bruce is one of the tech experts, or techspert, of the M.A.S.K. team, and he also specializes in making toys, which that's kind of neat. He also has the code name Magic, which not exactly sure how you get that code name in a vigilante task force, but maybe Matt Trakker knows. And speaking of, this is actually the first time in all of these M.A.S.K. videos that I've talked about Matt Trakker. Feels kind of weird considering he's the main hero and main character of the series, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm pretty biased towards the bad guys. Matt comes with the Ultra Flash mask, which I guess just flashbangs people.
You fool! Ah!
And I think this has to be one of the earliest mask designs in Mobile Armored Strike Command, as it appears on a lot of merchandising and logos. But the Ultra Flash mask wasn't the only piece used for iconography and logos. In fact, the Rhino appears on almost every toy box as part of the main M.A.S.K. logo. The Rhino is a commanding presence, and much like Optimus Prime, you can tell that this rig was meant to be the main focus of the toy line. The bright primary colors and the overall shaping of the long-nosed cab gives this a very heroic presence. You can tell that this is meant to be Matt Trakker's main vehicle, and that's kind of backed up by the design process of M.A.S.K. We'll talk about that a little later. The Rhino is a big, bold powerhouse of a rig, and it is large and in charge. If you don't deal with vintage M.A.S.K. toys on a regular basis, this thing will blindside you by how big it is. As a large, long-nosed cab, it has a pretty impressive display presence. The bold red, accented by the 70s style stripes, really makes it stand out, even when compared to the other M.A.S.K. toys. The other notable visual detail on the Rhino is all of the chrome accents. Chrome grille, chrome smokestacks, chrome gas tanks, tons of chrome on display, and while it's a little faded on this example, you can imagine how gleaming and eye-catching it was fresh out of the box back in the day. Opening the doors, we've got a pretty cozy cab with room for two, which means there is just enough space for Bruce and Matt to sit in there. It's a bit of a snug fit, and they might be holding hands, but just keep in mind, they're just professional friends, okay? Now if you move towards the rear of the rig near the trailer hitch, you can see two chrome buttons. This can activate a couple of action features that are available in both the transformed battle station mode and the regular rig mode. The first button launches the front of the grille like a battering ram. The other button launches out the passenger seat and the figure with it with a very impressive force. The box lists this as an enemy ejector seat, and while it's a fun feature, I don't understand why Matt Trakker would allow someone he doesn't trust to ride shotgun, but I'm not going to argue with the lore of action figures, okay? But you know what? We can't just have two people canoodling in the cab, because the Rhino needs to transform, which means all hands to the deck. The rear of the rig actually detaches and becomes a little ATV-style tank or armored car. It's pretty adorable, and it has one bucket seat, so you can fit one person in there. Honestly, it has a little bit of a roly-poly quality to it, but I like it. It's cute, and it's charming, and it's a nice little addition, a nice little rover to add to the Rhino. Now from there, the Rhino begins its transformation into its mobile battle station form. The large smokestacks swing down to become large cannons, and the rear sleeper section of the cab extends outward to become the command center, complete with a little access ramp, and that's about it. You pretty much got the Rhino transformed right there. When fully transformed, the Rhino is much more of a mobile command center or base than a full assault vehicle. Obviously it has its fair share of armaments, but really the big play feature comes in the little computer console room in the back. See, not only do we have all these awesome reel-to-reel computer stickers, but we also have a large missile launcher. This large black missile is on a very, very tetchy hair trigger spring and is liable to go off at any given moment, sometimes even in truck mode. It's a pretty powerful spring-loaded mechanism, and I guess it acts as a mortar to attack some of the airborne Venom vehicles. But honestly, I like the German version a little better. Over in Germany, they remolded this in gray plastic and included a few stickers, calling it a TV satellite, and honestly, with the large fringes on the sides, it kinda does have a little bit of a Sputnik vibe. I kinda like it a little better as it gives M.A.S.K just a little bit more depth. They're not always on the assault, sometimes they're a little cloak and dagger. After all, illusion is the ultimate weapon. Let's take a peek behind the hood to see how Kenner M.A.S.K came to be. It's a little bit of a misnomer to say that it was directly inspired by the Transformers. Even though M.A.S.K started well after the Transformers debut, the toy line's concept actually goes back a few more years. Before Miles Mayhem, Venom, Matt Tractor, or even the concept of M.A.S.K, there was the original idea of A.T. Wheeler. In 1983, Kenner's design and development team came up with the idea of converting vehicles by kit-bashing scale models. Part of this was inspired by the late 70s, early 80s CB radio and trucker craze. It's a really weird blip in pop culture history, and I think you really just had to be there to get it. But from my understanding in an anthropological, historical point of view, is that long-haul trucking and truckers were kind of viewed as the last vestiges of the American West. These were outlaw mavericks making their own way in America using big rig machinery. From Convoy to Smokey and the Bandit and even Big Trouble in Little China, the late 70s and early 80s were the only time in human history where truckers were seen as damn near superheroes and almost infallible. I don't need 40 years of true crime to tell you that truckers are not exactly spotless, but if you can take one piece of advice from this random-ass toy review channel, it's never, ever get into a truck with a stranger. Hitchhiking is dangerous. Don't do it.
Ass, gas, or grass?
Well, I'm out of gas. Guess I'll take ass.
Anyway, look, this information comes from Blue Milk Publishing's Toy Collector's Wish Book Volume 2, which has a lot of contributions from superfans and collectors, and gives us a lot of great information on how M.A.S.K came to be. The A.T. Wheeler toy line focused on the eponymous A.T., a trucker wandering the open roads of America, doing good deeds with his pal Lugnuts, the mechanic who would work on their truck, a Peterbilt 359 long-nose style cab. In addition to the scaled vehicles and figures, there would also be life-size role-playing toys. These would be helmets and backpacks with rescue themes, including scuba diver and firefighter. The A.T. Wheeler concept would be shopped around a few different divisions of Kenner, and through collaboration and development, it would eventually change into M.A.S.K Force. M.A.S.K Force is much more akin to what we know today, but it does have its few oddities and nuances. For example, at a point, it was going to be spelled M.A.S.K with a C, so that command would be spelled correctly instead of phonetically with a K. Another example is that Matt Tractor is not the billionaire philanthropist from Utah running a vigilante strike team. Instead, he's the leader of the Peaceful Nations Alliance. In this treatment, M.A.S.K is much more akin to G.I. Joe, most likely a group of commandos and specialists from all around the world, and they'd be tasked with combating the forces of the Contra World Syndicate. The Contra World would eventually become the vicious evil nature of man, and then the vicious evil network of Mayhem, or Venom. And from that point on, it's pretty much the story you know. It's pretty interesting to look back on the development of M.A.S.K and see how it was heavily inspired by a very strange blink-and-you'll-miss-it moment in pop culture. While I think it would have been very interesting to see the A.T. Wheeler concept finalized, I'm glad they moved into a much more ambitious direction. While I do think the A.T. Wheeler toy line would have been very interesting, it would have had the 70s-80s trucker craze as a large millstone around its neck. very inseparable from that moment, much like the C.B. McCall toy line. And while these concepts are embedded very deeply into the DNA of the Rhino, it expands beyond them. That first year of the M.A.S.K toy line really embodies what I like about it for the hero vehicles. They're all bold, fun, interesting civilian vehicles that have dynamic attack modes. The Gator's a Jeep, the Firecracker's a pickup, the Condor's a motorcycle, and the Thunderhawk's a sports car, all led by the large civilian big rig Rhino. I kind of wish that Kenner had actually developed Venom's vehicles to be a lot more militaristic or even futuristic to further differentiate them from the hero vehicles. But looking back at the design process, we can see that 40 years onward, A.T. Wheeler would have been a novelty. But 40 years on, M.A.S.K is a fan favorite, a cult classic with a lot of charisma and a lot of charm.